To be honest, I feel like everything that needs to be said has already been said. There's really not a great deal more that I can contribute to this conversation, aside from the fact that you have the creators of these amazing programs. You have a guy who was not only a participant, but he chose to forego an opportunity to take care of his family. I met him when I started an 8-year sentence for an aggravated DUI. We were on the same yard, we were actually bunk mates. We worked at Swift, and we were making pretty good money to be in prison working at Swift, being able to provide for ourselves, save a little bit of money so that we could send it off to our family, take care of our family while they're out there. He forewent all of that to be able to be a participant and a peer mentor in that program. So that tells you everything you need to know about him. I was just more so a participant. I went through the program for 90 days. A little bit about me. My name is Delon Escoffrey. That's me there. That's my son back there in the back, Deshaun Escoffrey. I would say that he's probably the greatest reason why I'm standing here today. I'm a 15-year veteran in the Department of Corrections. And I didn't serve it all at one shot. I was in the installment program, so over the course of 4 easy payments, I gave 15 years of my life in service to the Department of Corrections. I was having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday at the award ceremony. I don't see him in here today. He said he would be at another class, but he's like the head of the probation department for Greeley County. And he said something to me that kind of resonated, and I wanted to expound and kind of challenge him a little bit. And he said that of the 300 or so adults and the dozen or so youth that they have on probation in Greeley County, which is not a lot, it's probably the smallest county in Arizona, he recognizes that a lot of these people have experienced some form of trauma. And I challenged him. I didn't really ask. It was more so a statement that part of the problem that we have in our society is that when a baby's born, we'll look at that baby and we'll say, he's so beautiful, he's so precious and so adorable and so innocent and smells great. And they want to hold them and kiss them and shake them and all that good stuff. But then there comes a point in time when that child may make a mistake, and now they're the worst people in our society. And instead of sitting from the ivory tower and saying, what happened? What is it that allowed a child, whether 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, whatever the case may be, to make a decision to where you feel like you have to turn to gangs or to drugs or to violence or to any form of crime? That's a question that we really should be asking ourselves as a society. Because no 10, 11, 12-year-old just wakes up one day and decides, I think I want to sell drugs. I think I want to join a gang. I think I want to enact in violence. I'm going to share a story which I don't think I've ever told anybody before. There's maybe a handful of people in the course of my 40 years in life that have heard the story, but this is my introduction to the system, right? I got introduced into the system at the age of 12. And a few months prior to this, I had actually just finished 8th place in the 100-meter dash, so I was the 8th fastest 12-year-old in the 100 in America, right? And a couple of months later, there was a guy from my neighborhood who had a program where he would take different kids from the community and he'd give them an opportunity to earn a few bucks. He had us on a candy route. So I'm out, 12 years old, on my candy route. And one day, I happened to see a lady, she's blind. Had never seen a blind woman before, a blind person, period. I don't think I ever saw it on TV. And I was more so mystified that she's got her walker and she's walking down the street, and I have no idea where she's going, I have no idea where she's coming from, but I was just curious, and I'm like, I don't even think she's blind, so I picked up a rock and I threw it, not at her, but in her direction, just to see what her reaction would be. And there was no reaction. She just kept moving. So I walked up to her, I looked, she didn't have on glasses, so I could see the whites of her eyes, and I was like, not only was I like mortified, but I was even more intrigued. So I asked her, hey, listen, I'm trying to catch the bus. Do you happen to have 60 cents I can borrow? She never really looked at me. She never really looked in her purse, but she reached in her purse. She grabbed her coin purse. She reached in her coin purse and she put out some change and she felt around and she gave me a quarter. She felt around, she gave me another quarter. She gave me a dime. She said, there's 60 cents. Hope you can get on the bus. Have a nice day. And I was blown away. Now, as a 12-year-old, I was just more so curious. 30 minutes later, I'm leaving a house with my box of candy and I see a police car. Don't really make the correlation. They're sitting next to a truck. The guy in the truck points, says, yep, that's him. They come, they knock the box out of my hand, they throw me on the ground, they cuff me up, they take me to jail. It seemed like I was at the precinct for hours. I could have been 20 minutes, I have no idea. But they never asked me, why'd you do it? I told them why I did it, I tried to explain to them why I did it, but they never asked me why I did it. All they did was they continued to tell me how I was the worst person on the face of the earth. And then when I went to jail, all the different things that the people in jail were going to do to me. And eventually I ended up in jail. They took me to jail. That was the beginning of my stay in the Department of Corrections. And what happens is that it instantly became only about survival. It was not about learning or having an opportunity to become a better person or changing the area of my ways. I was thrust in my most formidable years around people who had already become hardened criminals. And that was the mentality that I began to foster. So for my own sake, I do not blame anybody for any choices that I made thereafter, but it wasn't a surprise to me when I began this process of self-reflection that this was going to be the course that at 17 I would end up now on my way to serve 6.5 years in prison. And the entire time, all I'm trying to do is just survive. But I'm learning. These are the people that I'm learning from. I grew up in a household without a father. So there wasn't anybody to ever sit me down and help me to explain the world and my place in it. I was left to my own devices to figure that out. And so a lot of people in prison will say, or a lot of people from the streets at least will say, that we're nothing more than products of our environments. And when you're around hardened criminals, people that have now 20, 30, 40 years in this, they're con artists, they're drug dealers, they're gang members, they're people who commit unspeakable acts of violence against others. This is who you're learning from. So it got to a point to where after having served 7 years close, I was 24, I'm pushed out into society, and they're like, all right, go get them. Go get a job, go take care of yourself, go be a productive member of society. But the challenge is that I understand what it means to get a job. I understand what it needs to need shelter, and I understand what it needs to have a vehicle. But if you've never been shown love or compassion, understanding, human decency, kindness, these are things that you come out into society and you have no idea to have a real interaction with people. So I could talk and I could shoot the shit and I can small talk my way around in any conversation because I learned that as a survival mechanism in prison. But how do you have real connections with people? How do you have real relationships with people? How do you build up a rapport with someone when you have no idea who you are on the inside? My first real experience with loving another human being was when my son was born. I was 27 when he was born, so 2010, and that was the first time I had ever really felt like, oh my God, this is somebody that I can love. But I had no idea how to love myself, so I couldn't quite really give him the love and the attention that he desired. I didn't have any idea how to be a man, so how could I teach this young boy how to be a man? And so I'm continuing to just go through the motions, but there's still this emptiness inside that I had no idea how to quite feel. And how I would feel it was I'd smoke and I'd drink. And then eventually when he was 5, they sentenced me again to prison to go serve 8 years. So fortunately, none of you guys really know what it's like to go to prison. But when you go to prison, the only thing you want to do is just get out. You want to get out of prison and get back to your life. I wanted to get out of prison and get back to my son. The challenge is that when you go, everyone's telling you how to be and what to be. The Department of Corrections is telling you, you need to be this, you need to do this, you need to go here, you need to go there. The entire prison population is telling you how to be. It's very segmented, right? It's all based on race. So aside from the fact that now I'm clicked up with my own race and they're separating us based on where you grew up or what flag, what color rag hang out of your back pocket, and then you have these other races that are trying to tell you how to be, all you're really trying to do is just survive. And all I wanted to do at that junction was just focus on my recovery and try to get back to my son as quickly as possible. And it's not to say that it's virtually impossible in prison, because people do it. But it's not the easiest thing to do. I went to prison for a DUI and they sent me to a place called Stickham Steiner. So how do I focus on substance abuse when I'm just trying not to get stabbed up every day? That's the reality that over 2 million people in this country face every single day. And I'm not trying to rationalize the choices that people make to end up where they end up in life. But all I'm saying is that we at some point in time need to think about the environment that we're fostering. Because these people, most of them, 90% of them, will get out of prison. They will be your neighbor. They will be next to you in traffic. They will be next to you in the grocery aisle. And it's up to all of us to have a vested interest in how we're treating the lower portion of our society. I had a conversation with a guy last night at dinner, and I had to explain to him that personal development comes when you realize that you're talking to someone and you don't see yourself as greater than they are or less than they are. That's a life lesson that is difficult to learn when you're in an environment where people are just trying to get over. And so the entire time that I spent in prison, all I wanted was an opportunity to just make the most of this time, to get myself together and to get back to my son. And so when I heard about the Second Chance program, I realized that that's probably the place that I need to be. I'm not going to preach to you guys. I'm not going to get too religious, but I do have a story that I want to share. And that is that there's a word that they use in the Bible. It's called rahafid. They only use it twice in the Bible. There's once in Deuteronomy, I think through Deuteronomy 6:30, but the first time that you see it is in Genesis 1. And the verse goes, the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters, right? And that's what rahafid means. It means to hover or to flutter. Now, you may not remember this, son, but when he was younger, I had this idea that we would raise chickens. Right? So I had a buddy of mine that he had a farm we'd go to, we'd ride horses, we'd play around in the chicken coop, mess with the cows, kind of walk around. And so one day we're in the chicken coop and a mother hen, and she's over the nest and she kind of gives a little flutter. Now I asked my friend, hey, is that the new dance? Like, what is she doing? What he explained to me is that she's about to get ready for a hatchling. The egg's about to hatch. And so instinctually, the mother knows that she needs to prepare the environment over the egg to make it conducive to survival. So she's shaking away the dust, the debris, the germs, the bacteria, but she's also self-regulating the temperature to give her hatchling the best chance to survive. To put it into perspective, it's no different than a hospital. When my son was born, had to come straight from work, and I couldn't just come right from work, this computer job that I had working in collections, and be ready to deliver this baby. I had to go through a sterilization process. I had to get clean, I had to put on this garment, I had to get acclimated to the temperature, and then I could be allowed into the room. And so they've kind of honed in on this process of child rearing, right? Making sure that you provide the most conducive environment for a child's success right out of birth. And to me, that's exactly what the Second Chance Center was. It was an opportunity to be in an environment that was conducive to success and change and prosperity and personal and spiritual development. I got an opportunity to be around like-minded people that weren't going to segment me based upon my race, because here's the reality, is that in my 15-year experience in prison, I never met one person that says, man, I love this. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Now, I've met people that were so maladjusted that they could not handle society. They were so empty on the inside that it was easier to go to a place where people would tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, than to be left to your own devices and to figure it out on your own. But no one wants to be in prison. Everyone wants to be a better version of themselves. But how do you do that in an environment where everyone is trying to bring out the worst in you? And that's exactly what the Second Chance was it's an opportunity for me to go and focus on the most important aspects of my healing and my recovery. I had a chance to be around like-minded individuals that wanted the same thing for themselves, and they wanted the same things for other people. So you could go there and you could win. You could go there and you could actually take the time to really breathe and desensitize from all of the trauma that you experienced over 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 plus years that some of these guys have spent in prison. And so largely, I owe a lot of my success to the Second Chance program, because the last 90 days in a person's stay in prison is very pivotal. That's when all of the anxiety and all of the fear and all of the apprehension sets in, and that's really when the doubt starts to kick in. You can see people, and for 3, 4, 5 years of a stay, they're flourishing, they're doing well, and then all of a sudden that last 90 days kicks in, the last 60 days kicks in, and they're a completely different person. Because as they say, pardon my language, shit's about to get real. And they know it. Because most people on most yards, the only thing they're told is, just don't come back. Well, how do you do that? It's a little more complicated than just saying, go get a job, go pay your bills, go pay taxes, and don't return to crime. And so having an environment to where you can learn all of these different skills, and not just job skills or not just vocational skills, but learning actually how to socialize with people. Learning how to, they had a class that was taught on the 4 agreements. I don't know how many of you have ever read that book. Me and my son are actually reading that right now. But that's a very powerful book to help give you some of the framework necessary to understand what it means to actually just be a human being. When you've been treated as a criminal and as the worst of society for any measure of time, eventually, you'll believe it. And so to be in an environment where people are actually believing in you, they're not calling you an inmate, they're not calling you a convict, they're not calling you a miscreant or a detriment to society, but they're calling you by your name and they're telling you that they believe in you. That goes a long way to begin to change the mindset and the spiritual nature of each and every person that goes through that program. And so I didn't have the opportunity to go through the IRC program because when I was at the Second Chance, it was more so geared towards guys that were trying to get their CDL. I wasn't interested in getting my CDL, nor was I eligible because I was there for a DUI. And I'm in a fortunate position. I do okay now in life. God is good. I'll be 2 years I've been home on the 25th of this month. And I've been in his life every single day since I've been home. And but I'm an outlier. I'm not the norm. I'm sort of an exception. And so I'm in a position to where I can pay the money to continue to pay on these fines to make sure that I keep my license so that I can continue to work. I was fortunate enough that I had an opportunity to work, to save a little money so that when I got out, I could get set up on a payment plan to get my license. But that's not the norm. And like you said, we're not asking to give somebody something for nothing. But each and every one of us, I'm pretty sure, can look back on your life and you can find there was somebody somewhere that believed in you and supported you enough to help you to get to where you were. And having the opportunity to enroll people in the Second Chance and in the IRC program does that for people who have probably never had anybody ever believe them or give them an opportunity to succeed. And so it's great that we have it at Phoenix West and Piestewa and Manzanita, but in reality, these programs need to be on every single complex, on every single yard, not just in the state of Arizona, but all across the country. Because again, no one sits in prisons and says, yeah, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I thank you guys for taking the time. I hope that you really do take into consideration the great value that this program has, not just for the people that take part in the program, but for all of us in society as well. Thank you.